Hello. I just got back from University of California at Santa Cruz, UCSC. Um, you know, that's um, which is my local UC, I guess. And so I had to use their library to access Ptolemy's geographia, whatever. Um, and it's called the geography. It's the basis of geography. Like the field of geography is based on this book, and yet I could not find it on the internet, on the Google, on the DuckDuckGo, anything. It's not on the internet. You cannot find this book on the internet. It's like over 2,000 years old. Um, I don't know how old it is. Like, got to be like 2,500 years old or something. Um, and yeah, like why, most books that are old, like obviously the author's dead, so there should be the copyright issue shouldn't be a thing. And even like the translators, like there's a translation from like 1903, and even that one is not available online. Like there's no way to read this book unless you have institutional clearance. It's like the most restricted ancient book that I've ever encountered. Um, so, if that's because they're trying to cover up the truth, or if it's just a terrible system, I don't know. But certainly this book is very inconvenient for, the establishment, because Ptolemy was a Roman, Greco-Roman Egyptian. I don't think he was actually a pharaoh. Maybe he was. Yeah, maybe he was the pharaoh, or maybe he was just the librarian at Alexandria. Anyway, he was hugely influential in ancient times. His whole era is called the Ptolemaic era, based on him in Egypt. And so basically his geography book is a map of the planet, or at least a map of like part of the planet. And the map, which the Muller map of America and of the world, from like 1507, I believe, or maybe 1503. Anyway, that map was the most accurate map of the world. And it still confuses people because it shows a lot of things that were not supposed to be known. There's no record of anybody navigating any of, half the stuff on that map. Like at that time, 1503 or 1507, all that had been, at least on the record, like all that we know that was like navigated and explored by Europeans at that time was, I think, Amerigo Vespucci, explored part of the eastern coast of South America, and then Columbus explored like the Caribbean, I guess, and maybe something else. But he showed like the whole, I mean, he didn't show everything, but he showed, oddly enough, Waldseemüller made two maps on the same map. So there's like the overall map, and then there's a smaller map. And it's like the overall map seems to be based on one theory, but it seems like, or it seems that he was not really sure about this theory, so he had two theories or whatever. So the smaller map that's on the same map, it's just above the overall map, shows Panama, like the Isthmus of Panama connecting North and South America, whereas his larger map shows like the isthmus, instead of an isthmus, is kind of two peninsulas that just like bump into each other, like boop, but they don't really connect. So that was on the theory that it was two separate islands. But that was the map that named America, and actually it named South America, America. It named North America Parias. And that was based on, I believe, a South American native name for either North America or some part of North America, or maybe Central America. But somehow from that, eventually the whole, both of them became known as America. And so it's a very important map. And it was a map that was, the title of the map was the Ptolemaic system of, world geography or something. Like Ptolemy was in the name of the map because he was consciously basing it on the Ptolemaic system, using the Ptolemaic system based on Ptolemy's geography. I guess that's why I got the idea to try to track down the geography, because Ptolemy's geography. Oh, I know. Yeah, so I was reading about this, the Waldseemüller map. I think it was on Wikipedia, and it says that Waldseemüller, he used the Ptolemaic system. And because Ptolemy's geography is a map of the planet, or at least part of it, and it begins the map at a certain, I don't know if it's the prime meridian or whatever it is, but basically everything is charted from certain points east and west and north and south, and the furthest west boundary of the map is America. It's like the middle of America. So, and what it says on Wikipedia is that Waldseemüller, when he was, because like what the geography is, what Ptolemy's geography is, it's a map, it's a world map, but it's not drawn. It's a map completely created by like coordinates and descriptions. So you can draw a map, you can make an actual physical map using Ptolemy's, book, and just, putting lines and everything everywhere he says. And people have done that, and there are maps based on that, and there were ancient maps based on that. But it said in Wikipedia that Waldseemüller interpreted instead of America, like basically Ptolemy says everything, like the westernmost boundary of his map is the center of the Blessed Isles, or the Blessed Isles, or the Fortunate Isles. So that's America. That means America. But Waldseemüller apparently, supposedly, according to Wikipedia, interpreted that as meaning the Canary Islands. And apparently that's what's been done ever since. And maybe that was already done before him, like just today, I went to UCSC and was looking through different books about Ptolemy's geography, and they say the same thing. They say, oh yeah, the Blessed Isles, that's That's the Canary Islands. But it's like so, I just like, I don't, modern society is such a disgrace. Like nobody's, I don't know, people don't pick up a book. I mean, it's a disgrace even in the, when they did this in 1507. I'm even like almost skeptical of whether that's even true, that Walt C. Miller was that, deluded, because back then it was common knowledge that like the Blessed Isles, the Fortunate Isles, it means the underworld. That's another name for the underworld, the Hesperides, the land across the sea. Not the Canary Islands. Canary Islands are like just off the coast of Africa. Just not the Blessed Isles. That's never been the Blessed Isles. I mean, I'm sure they're very blessed, but they're not the Blessed Isles. I mean, Plutarch said the Blessed Isles were 1,000 miles west of Africa. So 1,000 miles west of Africa is America, not the Canary Islands. Canary Islands are like, I don't know, maybe 50 miles west of Africa. So anyway, so either, if Wikipedia is correct, that probably screwed up his map, Walt C. Miller's map. But there's, I mean, I've seen just in preliminary searches in the last couple of days online, there's at least 2 or 3 books that are just about how the longitude of Ptolemy's map is wrong. And they're basically like, everything else is pretty accurate. Seems like, I mean, he had the circumference of the world much more accurate than a lot of more modern estimates, or than the estimate that Columbus claimed that he was following. But I think they're wondering why is everything not where it should be on this map. It's because they're measuring it from the wrong place. So there's 2 books, there's probably more than 2 books about this issue, and they're going to scramble to try to find reasons why the longitude is off. It's a very simple thing, and it's honestly stupid, because they could just Google it. Like, all they do is they say, well, the other geographers say that the Blessed Isles are the Canary Islands. But you could just Google the phrase. Don't just talk to this is the problem with like compartmentalization, over specialization, is that you have people that don't know anything outside of their topic. They're useless outside of their topic. So whenever their topic like brushes up against another topic, then they're even useless at their own topic. Like all they would have to do is just look through Greek mythology for a second and see that the Blessed Isles are not the Canary Islands. The Blessed Isles are basically a synonym for Hades. So anyway, they so I finally found a translation, at least of part of it, and what did it say? Ptolemy's Geography. This was a 2020 edition. I think it's like a reprint of a 2000 edition. But so I found the quote where Ptolemy writes, the western limit is bounded by the meridian drawn through the islands of the blessed, which is 60.5 something, whatever their measurement is. There's some symbol for it, or 4 equinoctial hours from the most eastern meridian. All right, so I don't like really know what that means, but kind of do. Like, it explains why the books of the Egyptian underworld maps have a line through the center of it, basically, which I was just speculating recently might be like some kind of flight path for like ancient UFOs or something, which, you know, don't want to rule that out, but it might be that it's just this, or at least partly it's just this. It's the time meridian or something, because I think, like, you know, on the maps, you know, you can check out the maps. You can check out my article on medium.com. It's called America and the Old World Are Each Other's Underworlds, and old world in quotes. And but yeah, there's like in the underworld maps, there's these ancient Egyptian maps of America, and they are divided into two halves, like, and like the original, the oldest one of the books of two ways. I mean, the oldest Egyptian map of America, of the underworld, doesn't have a line through it, for whatever reason. But like in some later ones don't as well. So it's not universal. But the oldest of the books of two ways, which is like the second oldest map that I know of that really shows America, like the oldest version of that, the one of the nomarch of the hair gnome, Hermopolis, Jehudi Nacht, the overlord of that gnome, basically that province or kind of state of the Nile of Egypt, which is the province of Thoth, like where the center of the Thoth cult, Thoth worship. So in the coffin, or the map that's in his coffin, because all the books of two ways are drawn inside coffins, you know, it shows like just America, and then it has a red line directly through the middle of it, north to south, and that might be related to why they depicted America in a kind of stylized way where, you know, they made it look as though South America was just south of North America, whereas in reality, South America is east and south. It's southeast of North America. But you know, I mean, that's a common thing that even modern people do, just because it's easier to kind of see them one on top of the other. So they just kind of, you know, they use that same device. But yeah, it has like a red line through the middle, and then the later ones, I think all the later ones after Jehudi Nachts, they also have the line through the middle, but they also separate the two halves of America by color, which the oldest one, Jehudi Nachts, does not. It just has a black line for each coastline, and that's it. Whereas all the later ones have a black line for the East Coast and a blue line for the West Coast. And that's, I think, just to make sure that people realize which coast is which. Because according to like the ancient traditions of probably not just Egypt, but probably, I mean, maybe the whole old world, you know, Eurasia and Africa, was that the sun, you know, obviously it goes down, it goes to the underworld, it goes to America every night, and then it comes back to Afro-Eurasia each day. But it's basically the like Re, you know, the sun god Re or Ra. He you know, sails his solar bark, his boat, through the sky, and he sails west, And then, but once he reaches like the western waters, basically the Atlantic Ocean, there's a serpent, like a ocean serpent, named Apophis, or Apep, or Apophis, however you pronounce it. But yeah, it's often pronounced Apophis. He attacks Ray, and I think he often injures Ray, and that injury is the basis of the sunset, of the red and different colors in the sunset. Would be maybe the blood of Ray from being bitten by this serpent. And then after he is attacked, Ray is basically, he's wounded and he's weary and he's unable to shine. And so the only way that he can shine for the next day and shine on Egypt is if he crosses the ocean, goes to the underworld, America, and then once he reaches halfway across, which is, it's basically treated as that, America is, as if America was the absolute antipode of Egypt, which is not technically the case. Like the actual antipode of Egypt would be like Hawaii or something. Like when it's midnight in Egypt, it's technically, it would be noon in Hawaii. But for the sake of this tradition, and I don't even know whether this tradition started in Egypt or where, but for the sake of this tradition, when it's midnight in Egypt, or maybe just in Afro-Eurasia generally, or I don't know, it's noon in, well, not to say it's noon, because that would contradict, but I would say that when it's midnight in Egypt is when, I guess it's when the sun rises. Like the sun, I think, is supposed to rise at midnight in the underworld. Like it reaches like this, like Ra Ray, he reaches like halfway across the underworld. And when he gets to the middle, which is theoretically on the exact opposite side of the planet, even though it's technically not, at least from Egypt, but it's not too far, then he is reborn, and then he rises for the next day. So in this tradition, basically the east coast of the US and like the Caribbean and probably much of the Atlantic, at least like half the Atlantic, never sees light. It never sees the light of the sun, at least. Maybe it sees like the moon or the stars or something. But in this tradition, and then again, this is not something that they actually believed. This is a symbolic tradition for people that, that are capable of like advanced symbolism, which the ancients were. So anyway, but in this tradition, yeah, the sun rises in the underworld, and then it gets attacked again as it's crossing the Pacific. Apophis attacks it again, but it manages to escape and then rise again, basically, and then shine over Afro-Eurasia. So yeah, this makes a lot of sense. This helps me figure that out, because now I understand more, even more like what that meant, like what the line, because the line through America actually has text on it as well. And it's called the Lake of Fire. So, you know, all the stuff that we hear about hell and the like lake of fire and stuff, that's taken from like this cosmology, which was never like a real thing. Like there was never a real lake of fire. It's just referring to the sun's like kind of celestial lake of fire that perhaps that reignites it each night so it can be reborn, something of that nature. So so yeah, it's interesting. I think that Ptolemy, seeing as he, you know, begins his map in the middle of America, you know, like in the translations, they have him saying all the time, like he's saying some kind of Greek word like ekonene, whatever, and they translate it as the known world. And so he says that the known world, I think he says the western boundary is the middle of America and the eastern boundary is like the Sinai or something like that. But see, what I'm thinking is like he might be just referring to like 1/4 of the world, and whatever they're translating as known world, there's at least a good chance that that's a mistranslation and that he's, you know, just referring to one specific part of the planet. So I'm certain that, or I'm pretty certain that Ptolemy had maps of America. He probably wrote you know, he probably, if he did a geography, I'm guessing he included America in it. So since so far I have not been able to find his actual descriptions of the Blessed Isles, while the Blessed Isles are the longitudinal basis for his map, but I've not found a part where he actually describes them. So there's at least a good chance that that's omitted, and that either he or later people or even modern people have suppressed that, and that might not be publicly available. But yeah, I can pretty much guarantee if he's using them as the whole basis of the rest of his map, he knows more about them than just where they are. I'm sure he had actual details of the topography, geography of America. So anyway, hopefully I can track that down, or somebody can track that down. But if not, at least we have all the maps that we have, and now this helps me understand like how to read them better. And I think honestly, like the Books of the Dead and the Book of Two Ways and etc., which has the America maps, is basically the same as Ptolemy's geography, just in some way, or it's very. I think a lot of it is the same thing. It is a geography. It is a world map, just using religious language to explain it. So anyway, that's my spiel. Check out, if you haven't seen it, check out my article on medium.com. America and the quote-unquote underworld or America and the quote-unquote old world are each other's underworlds, by Rowan Millar. And I'll continue updating it as I hopefully I'll have it more fine-tuned within the next few weeks and send it out more to the world. Anyway, thank you very much. Take care.